Are we ready for another video? So in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating why a higher fat, lower carbohydrate diet is great for everything. Why it's so brilliant and why is it the stuff you got to watch out for and why it can be so great as well. So to begin with, it's a great way to control your blood glucose levels. So it's good to control your blood glucose. How does that happen then? So when your blood glucose needs to be under control, you need to, when you have large quantities of refined sugars or carbohydrates, like sugars, cane sugars, which were rare before, and white flour products, if you don't have good muscle development or you do not have good insulin control, then what happens is your blood sugar tends to spike. It tends to spike, and a high blood sugar is very dangerous. It's very dangerous for you. It destroys the cells, destroys the lining of the cells. It's called glycation, and it destroys the lining. So some people will need to lower their carbohydrate levels. Some people will need to you can become fat adapted as well, which is a different story, but we're just talking about the low carb, high fat way of eating. And it's not a new way of eating. People have been eating this way for years. You see tribes that eat like that. Tribes around the world, different places in the world, eating this way. You do see tribes. You see even the Alkanoans, even the Alkanoans in Japan, they would have fatty beef, fatty pork with their meals. This ain't new. This is not a new way of eating. It's not like low fat where that's a new way of eating. That's a new way. That's very recent. Tribes weren't going, Tribes were not going, I need to watch my cholesterol. Oh no, I need to watch my cholesterol. No. Because the fattiest part of the animal is the most nutritious part. That's the bit that is super nutritious for you. And you don't want to be cutting out having chicken breast and cod, or chicken breast and turkey, and then like a low fat animal sort of meat. You can't be cutting it out because you are depriving yourself of the most nutritious parts of the foods. Why would you want to be cutting it out? We don't want to be cutting out the most nutritional part of our food. What? That's like you gotta have the fattiest part because this is the most nutritious part. A healthy animal all around the world in tribes, we've seen people eat the fatty part because it does not give you heart disease. People does not. Do your research. I had someone who I know, and they were saying that you need to do the plant-based vegan diet, and it's got all the research and everything, and the studies say this and blah blah blah, and like the thing is, I looked at both sides and both sides have said that it's both sides have the negatives and both sides have the positives, and no, there's no positives. There's no positives. Most of the research is short term. It's short term. There's no long term research. Remember this? There's no long term research. There's no long term. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, a few months. There's no long term research for that. There's no long term research. There isn't. There's no tribes. And number two, there's no tribes. There's no ancient civilizations that eat only plant-based. Or, I mean, only vegan. There's no evidence of that at all. Because that is starvation. And I know people will be saying, but the studies say this. What did they eat beforehand? Was it the meat? What did they eat before? They did not eat. They can usually compare to a person who eats meat, but also eats a load of processed, refined carbohydrates, refined, easy to spike blood sugar, glucose control goes out the window in most people, stress, that's why it affects that. And then secondly, eating those sugars and sweets and the diet, they'll compare it to a diet that's mainly plant-based as well. So most processed food, as you know it, is plant-based. That's where the cheap ingredients are. So they're comparing, so the diet before they went vegan would be 70% plant-based. That's what the standard American diet is, and then 30% coming from animals in fat or meat. And they compared this. They went vegan, and they went for more whole plant foods, which you will see an improvement from the processed sugars and sweets and vegetable oils, which are mainly plant-based as well. Like, it's not the meat. What about the quality of the meat? Nothing's mentioned about that as well. It's a load of nonsense, I believe. There's no research that backs it up. There is research, but it's 2 weeks. Does that mean you can go 2 weeks, 3 months? Does that mean you can go and do that diet for 9 years? There's no evidence of that. There's no listen. There's no evidence. So one, the research is short term. Most of it's short term. And they've only measured it for it only changes certain specific blood markers of the diet. It only changes specific blood markers. Only certain. It's not, that's it, and that's short term. From a junk food diet that has plant-based food, which is mostly processed, to a whole plant-based food diet in short term, 6 months, a year. Even the year ones are questionnaires. They're questionnaires. People ask, "What did you eat?" and they sign it. Do you think they're going to be truthful? No. So that research is biased. It's subjective. It's nonsensical, and has no merit to it. So people who keep saying that, but both sides have certain things, and I think this. No. The research is short term. That's number one. All of it is short term. There's no clinical trial that lasts 6 years. Two, there's no ancient civilization that has eaten that way. They've all eaten animals, organs and everything, because that's the most nutritious part of the animal. When an animal dies, the scavengers or whatever kills it will go to the organs first. This is because it's the most nutritious part of the animal. That's why they don't go for the muscle meat, because that doesn't have as much nutrition as the organs. And people just want to eat chicken breasts and dry meats on chicken, because I'm just gonna do a bit of low fat, and I was gonna go and eat chicken. Chicken's nice and light. It's nice and light and a nice salad. No. So that's that covered. So that's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Silliness. Okay, next. So it can be great, glucose control. But this is where the high fat component comes in, because if you eat high protein, it spikes your blood sugar. It doesn't get used. Most research on protein will say About 25 grams or 30 grams a meal is enough. After that, the rest gets converted to glucose. Most of it gets peed out, the other byproduct. So parts of it goes to glucose, most of it gets peed out, and yeah. So you don't need that much protein. It's how efficiently your body uses protein, how insulin sensitive. This is the high fat diet will make you more insulin sensitive because you don't need as much insulin to shuffle the glucose into the cell. So yeah, it does that. Helps regulate your hormones as you eat low fat. The hormones go, this is your hormones. I'm going to eat this chicken breast for the rest of my life, and I don't know, tuna and very low fat mince. And then what happens to your hormones? They go like this, like a roller coaster, like the one in Alton Towers. It goes because you need cholesterol to regulate your sex hormones. No cholesterol, lowering your cholesterol. Sex hormones go into the floor. Lower the animal fat, skin gets very thin, gets very dry, thin. You lose your glow as well if you lower the animal fats. This is documented, and you see it as well. And the skin becomes very thin, so you don't have the thickness because the animal fats will hydrate the skin. It will hydrate it and give it plumpness even as you get older, and it will keep your hormones right as well if you manage your stress and chemicals, and if you manage what time you go to bed, circadian rhythm. All these things come together like a jigsaw puzzle, and you have to get them all working right. So if all that's right and you're eating high fat, then you're fine. You're fine. It helps control your metabolism, helps keep the insulin levels balanced, helps not have roller coasters of blood sugar. Because when you have a meal so what your meals will look like, an idea of them would be in the morning after you get up, maybe a small snack or a meal if you can have one. Usually the carbohydrate would be around 30, 40, 50 grams, depending on your height and size. And then you'd have 2 to 3 tablespoons of a fat. And then protein amount would be around 20, depends on your height, so even 15, 20, 25, 30 max grams in that meal. Okay, so that's what a meal would be like. In between these meals, you would need to have, you could either have a fatty protein like pork belly or butter with some sort of meat or any sort of fat. That would be in the middle, and then that as a snack, a small snack, that will help stabilize your blood sugar. It will help stabilize it. So after the first meal, it's quite balanced, and then it tends to decline in some people. In some people, actually, they have a physiological insulin resistance, and the blood sugar goes. And what happens there is the body's like, oh no, my blood sugar's going down. The body panics and starts going into gluconeogenesis, which is the breakdown of proteins in the body. So the body's going, basically, it's munching on itself, like, and it's going to munch on itself like a cookie monster, and what can protein turn into? It can turn into sugar. So when the body munches on itself like a cookie monster, then the blood sugar goes, and the insulin can't keep up with it. So it's like insulin resistance without eating. So we have to stabilize that blood sugar. So we have a small snack in between. This will be a protein snack with a bit of fat or more fat as well. The protein will then get converted into sugar again, but this time it will stabilize the blood sugar more than running off the own body or having something that's very carb heavy, or high protein, which will spike the blood sugar really high in some people. Yeah, so that would be the snack. And then the lunch would be the same as the breakfast, snack in between the lunch and dinner. Dinner would be the same as the breakfast, macro wise. And then before bed, you have another snack. And this should work out to around the right calories because fat's very dense. It's the whole weight of it. So you don't need a lot of volume to eat that. So that's how you do a low carb, high fat. Another snack idea would be a bit of carbohydrate instead. Instead of relying on the protein for the glucose, we rely on a bit of carbohydrate for the snack. So you could have a little piece of fruit maybe. This will be on low carb, high fat. A bit of fruit, maybe a little bit of an apple or orange. Maybe have a little bit of fat with that. So it's hard to say. Maybe with a bit of cream. Some people might react to that though, so you have to be careful. Maybe a bit of cream, or even like a little bit of an animal fat with the fruit to help stabilize, so you don't go as up if people are very sensitive, to help stabilize it, but only a small amount of animal fat. We have a little bit of animal fat with the meals, with the carbohydrate meals. When there is just fat and protein, you can have higher fat, so that would be the snacks. So the snacks will be higher fat, but the protein, we won't go low fat with the meals, no, but we'll have a little bit of fat so it doesn't all get stored in the body as fat. But in between the meals, the body's won't be likely to store that fat as body fat, and therefore you can have higher amounts of fat with the small to moderate amounts of protein as a snack. Or you could have a larger meal. You can structure it differently, but I hope this is clear on how to do the low carb, high fat. There's a lot of research out there and certain YouTubers who are very knowledgeable in this realm, and you probably know who that is. Yeah, so that's it. And there's a lot of benefits because you're getting your glucose under control. This is not a new way of eating. People have eaten like this for a long time. It's a more natural way of eating because the organs are the fattiest bit, and humans have always eaten organ meats and very high fat. They weren't worrying about the cholesterol and all that nonsense. And that is it for this video. I hope it's really clear that you understand. Controlling the blood sugar. Did we go over everything? Yeah, I think we did. The blood sugar, how it stabilizes it, how not to go high protein because that converts into glucose, so it's too high enough, too much glucose, physiological insulin resistance, why you may need to take certain precautions before trying this diet, because you might have a sludgy gallbladder that's blocked up, and you might have stones, you might have sludge, you might have stuff, so you need to sort that out first, and then you can make the fats higher with certain things like tukka and bile salts and stuff to get the gallbladder. You might not even know because a lot of people don't even have symptoms from what I'm learning now. A lot of people don't have symptoms of a gallbladder not working as it should be. So you need to clear that out. What's the health of, you need to know the health. What's the health of your liver? What's the health of the gallbladder? What's the health of your adrenals and kidney function? Have you got poor kidney function? What's the health of your body? So you need to know this before you do any dietary measure, because you could be damaged by the standard Western diet lifestyle, and then you do these protocols, and then like more problems can occur. So you need to understand the health of your body before you do take on any of these protocols. And that'll be it for this video. I hope this makes sense, and I hope it's being really clear, and I hope, yeah, and that'll be it. And thanks for watching. This was quite an interesting talk actually, and thank you very much.